Oh, we're on. We're live. All right. Like we're talking to our
camera guy.
our guy, and he's like, we're already live. Hey, thank you for joining us this week on Bring on the Sabbath.
Hi.
We're here down in our bunker, 500 feet under Atlanta.
Again, stop. This is. Please be the last episode you say that.
Okay. Well, this is actually the first episode I said 500 feet. Okay, 12 feet. 12 feet under Atlanta.
Just stop saying like hundreds.
Our bunker's falling deeper and deeper, apparently. Well, welcome back, everybody. I'm glad you made it safely through another week. I'm very thankful that we did, and excited about the show that we have this evening.
Yes, we have a lot to offer. We have a special guest, Jim Eason, who he's a speaker at your church, the Independent Church, and also at CGI in Atlanta. So he's a speaker here in Atlanta.
Equal opportunity.
Yeah, equal opportunity.
He can hear us.
And yeah,
He's right behind you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, he's right in. We can see him
He's
here.
waiting in the wings.
Hi.
Waiting to come on his segment. But we're so happy to be here, and we're glad everybody is joining us tonight. We're on Facebook, and we're on the CGI, churchonline.org, and so we'll be looking for your comments. And we're so happy that you're joining. I'm gonna actually look on Facebook right now and see if I can see if we're live and if people are joining us and whatnot, and the page and.
Yep, I'm seeing all kinds of hellos of
there we
people
are.
having their own conversations.
Yep.
Ooh, somebody even said hi, Connor.
Yep, we have
Hi.
quite a few
Wait,
people
who
on
did?
here. We have Jeff Steele says Happy Sabbath, bring it on. Yep, so bring it on, bring on the Sabbath. And Amy Hohert says Happy Sabbath, peeps. And so we have people watching there. So we'll get your comments on our Facebook feed, and we'll get comments from our own Church Online. And we're broadcasting on Roku, we're on Apple TV, we're on all three of our YouTube channels. And so
YouTube channels?
yeah, yep, we have a lot of channels that we're broadcasting live on right now.
Bruh.
Quite a few, and so good,
Wow.
yeah, so good. So we got a few.
Since
Yes.
we have all those forms, I think we have a few events that we want to remind people of or announce.
Yeah, we have the first announcement is we have a CGI Summer Family Retreat that we're working on, and I have the information. Then we'll pull up. So Church Guy International, and we're hoping to work with others. But we're going to do this up in Medina, Ohio, the 2020 Summer Family Retreat. It will be between July 23rd through 26th, and we're going to have accommodations at the Holiday Inn Express for only $99 a night, which is a great deal. We've been traveling recently, and we know that sometimes hotels can get a little pricey. But $99 a night is a great hotel price. And you can call, there's a number online. You can go to our CGI.org, and you can find the link to the retreat right there on the front page, and you can get the number to call. We're going to have Sparks classes for ages 12 and up. That'll be Connor's age.
12 and
No, I mean, 12 and under. I'm sorry, yeah.
I was going to say, wait. That doesn't sound right. I'm not 12.
Yeah, so 12 and under. And then we have the Ignite classes, which are 13 to 18-year-olds that we're going to be doing. And then we have Infuse, which is 18 to 30-year-olds, plus things for the entire family. We have interactive games. We're going to have a family outing at the lake. Family PEP services, which is praise, education, prayer. So we're going to praise services with interactive messages for everybody, for the whole family. We're going to have inflatables, all the activities. And
like any church event,
yeah, food.
way too much food.
All the activities and all the meals are going to be included. So you just pay for your hotel, and we're going to take care of all the food there, and we're going to take care of all that stuff and all the activities, and just come out and be a part of this. Make your way up to Medina, Ohio. A lot of people are interested, so go hurry up and sign up. Get your hotel room early, because they may get booked up, and then you'll have to find a place that may be more expensive.
I'm going to go.
Yeah, get the $99 one soon.
Am I going?
I hope you're going.
I think I'm going. I don't know.
All right, great. And we also have another announcement
That's
for.
something.
Yes, so
the
we've
summer.
previously announced the women's retreat, but just want to continue to remind people who haven't heard about it or have heard about it and thought, oh, I should do that, and then moved on with their life like I do with so many things. So we've got the reminder up there. So this is the Seaside Escape. This is going to be on Lake Texoma in Texas, and it's going to be the weekend of June 26th through 28th. So again, if you go to cgi.org and click on the link, there's a lot of information there about what we'll be doing. what's included, what's not, what the price for the hotel is, all of that lovely information. I think that's all we wanted to say about that.
Yeah, so we got those announcements. Yes, and what do you have?
Sorry if you can see my feet. We did not have enough time to get socks on.
No.
Okay, I lied. I just didn't want to get socks on.
Yes, you didn't want to get socks on.
What? They're too hot.
Okay, so moving on.
So he's got like the Huckleberry Finn look.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Right now, the barefoot.
This is part of bringing on the Sabbath.
Yes.
You choose your battles. And if your kid finally wants to be able to sit around with no shoes on, I'll concede that one. Okay, but it is time for your segment.
You're waiting
So
for the we have a special
We have a new
sign for
slide.
it.
Yay!
Slide.
Connor's Corner.
Beautiful slide.
All right, Connor.
It's in Minecraft.
So, you and I are going to talk today, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, we have had a unique experience in that the last 4 weeks, last 4 Sabbaths, we have attended at 4 different churches.
Mm-hmm. No, 5. Wait, no, 4.
4.
5. No. 4.
Well, here, why don't you
5.
name them?
No, it's 5 hotels
Yes.
in 9 days.
Yes, 4 different churches. Can you remember what churches they were?
Montgomery,
Mm-hmm.
Knoxville,
Mm-hmm.
CGI in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
and Independent.
Good job. So what we thought we'd do with Connor's Corner today is just me and him talk for a few minutes about what that experience is like from a kid's point of view.
It was cool. It was very unique. I learned several different things on how different churches work, on their different beliefs in the Bible. Basically, does that make any sense?
Yeah. And I think their beliefs were pretty similar, but probably just the way they did services
just
were
the
a
way
little different.
just the way they work things out with it.
Okay.
Were different.
So I know both at the Independent Church in Atlanta and the church in Knoxville, you got to go to Sabbath school classes,
Yeah,
right?
they were very different.
Okay. Can
very
you
different.
talk about how they're different?
So basically, the one in Independent was basically like, I'd say more for younger kids, where you do crafts and you read not from the actual Bible, but from like a little kid's.
Like a storybook about
Yeah,
Bible
a little,
stories?
little storybook about a certain Bible story.
Okay.
And then in Knoxville, we did something way different. We did this, like, we read from the actual Bible. We talked about what different words meant, because I was 8. And I don't know much words like obnoxious. I still can't.
So it was more like a Bible study.
Yes, it was more like a Bible study than a kids class.
Okay. Which one did you like more?
I don't know. I actually don't know.
Did you enjoy getting to do both? How about that?
Yes, I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed both a lot.
Okay. What other things did you notice about the churches or?
Well, I noticed that they did longer it's right there.
Okay. Yes, look at that,
It's that
not me.
camera. It's that camera, not that camera. You keep pointing at that camera instead of that camera.
What did you notice about the
I
churches?
noticed about them that they both did things similarly by doing like services and during a kids class, and then I know.
Connor, just talk, sweetheart.
And then afterwards we do like eating and.
So all the
More
churches we went
eating.
to, they had food.
Yeah,
Okay.
at least like a bunch of trays of food. I ate mostly raw carrots, but still.
Okay.
they had
Did
food.
you have maybe like a favorite thing?
I didn't really have favorites,
Okay.
but I still like how we do our church, which is the Independent in Atlanta. I also like CGI. The two that I've been to most are CGI and Atlanta and Independent, because one, Independent was just my church, and CGI is the one that Jeff leads.
Mm-hmm.
And he's my
Yeah.
stepdad. So.
Yep. So that kind of got you there, didn't it?
Yeah. We won once or twice when you two weren't married, but still.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so for people who are listening, would you recommend to them that it's a good thing to get to go
Yes.
visit other churches?
It is a good thing for me to go to different churches and learn how they do things differently than others. Some similar, some more. Okay, these are really hard to pronounce. More similarly than they were. Some were.
They were
some
alike. Alike?
You also got to make friends at all the different churches,
Yes.
didn't you?
So now I have a lot of different friends around the world. Well, around the United States. I've never been.
And by going to their churches, you get to see them more than like just at the feast.
Yes, yes. Since they are both, they all are in the same like group. They
Church
all,
of God.
They all know each other.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to the same feast spot.
Mm-hmm.
Our favorite is Destin West or Destin. Destin West is the name of the hotel that we normally stay at. But
Okay.
still,
All right.
I'd recommend it.
Okay. Any last things you want to say about that topic?
That I think you guys should try it out there. You. I'm talking to you. I don't know who you are, but you. You
Okay.
specifically.
All right. Well, thank you for giving us a kid's point of view that's kind of unique. Do you have any kind of tease that you wanted to give about Connor's Corner next week? I know you're
I'm working on something.
He is feverishly working on something
I'm
that he
cooking
wants
something
to
up in my lab.
present next week.
Technically, it's my Switch. It's my Nintendo Switch. So the kids out there who love video games, I bet you're familiar with the video game Minecraft, and familiar with the biblical story Noah's Ark. I cannot speak language today. Language.
It happens.
What's language?
Anyway, so all right. So do you want to say more? Or do you just want to leave it at that?
Okay. So basically, I've built Noah's Ark, and next week in Minecraft, there's Noah. He's a villager.
You don't have to tell all about it right now. That's going to be next week.
So next week, stay tuned. I don't know.
So tune back in next week.
Tune back in next week to see Noah's Ark.
So Connor doing a presentation of Noah's Ark.
I've worked long and hard.
Okay.
And it's spent many hours a day.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Connor.
Yeah, thank you for Connor's Corner.
And
You're
I
welcome.
think we're going to go to our first commercial break, or is there something else we want to do? Do you want to read some comments?
I think you have any comments that you see?
Let me check.
I'm kind of missing out on you guys just looking at. I need to bring.
Someone said, Connor, you lost your shoes.
No, I didn't. I thought we already discussed this.
All right.
All right. I think that's it for now, and
Yes.
we'll take our first commercial break, and then we'll come back with our guest this evening, Mr. Jim Eason.
Peace out.
son's soccer game. I'll do the best I can to get that to you. Yep, I'll do my best. Anything else? You want me to watch your kids this weekend? Okay. And the dog? Sure, let me add that to my list. Okay, sure. Okay, okay. Sure. Yeah. Can you hang on a second? I gotta go.
If you don't have a magic seashell, we invite you to relax with friends and be refreshed by God at Seaside Escape. Wish you could have a day at the beach? Time with girlfriends for laughing and sharing. Time with God reflecting, praying. You can at Seaside Escape. It's a retreat where you'll have time with girlfriends, time with God, time for relaxation and refreshment. Join the women at our church at a sparkling, splashy, beach-themed retreat. Seaside Escape.
Hello, and we're back from commercial break, and we're joined by Jim Easton. Hey, glad to have you with us
And Jeff, thank you for having me in your home here in these new digs. I like it a lot, very much.
Well, thank
Appreciate
you so
it.
much for coming.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
And
Looking
again,
forward to it.
And again, Jim has spoken at both of the churches
On a
here
regular
in
basis.
Atlanta. Yeah, speaks at both at a regular. Do you speak at CGI like once a month?
Once a
every?
month. Mhm.
All right. So the pressure is on because you speak. So.
Oh no!
I mean, I know you're not going to be as animated as Connor, and you're wearing shoes.
Yep, you got the shoes on.
But
I was told to wear shoes.
Yeah, like no one knows if I'm wearing shoes or not because you can't see.
So what are you going to be speaking to us about tonight?
I want to talk to you tonight about the most incredible event in the history of mankind, and it's just out in front of us. The resurrection of the dead. That's what I want to talk to you about tonight. And I say it's the most incredible event because every single person throughout history, no matter who you were, how great you were, how little you were, is going to participate in this event. And I would like to go, my first scripture tonight is Isaiah 45.
Okay.
Isaiah 45 and verse 23. God speaking. By myself I have sworn, my mouth has uttered in all integrity a word that will not be revoked. Before me every knee will bow, by me every tongue will swear. They will say of me, in the Lord alone are righteousness and strength. All who have raged against him will come to him and be put to shame. Every person, no matter who they were, throughout time is going to come to this particular event. And, that's the good person, that's the bad person. And the good person is going to have to come and present himself before God and realize that all of his righteousness doesn't even compare to God. And the bad person is going to have to come and understand that how they lived their life was not acceptable to God, and they will then see their God. And I'm sure when they're there with God and with bended knee, they will tremble at his presence, and it'll be a whole new experience for both the good man and the bad man.
Which is a very different belief than a lot of mainstream Christianity has. I know I grew up Catholic, and that was one of my main points of contention was, well, what about all these millions and over time billions of people who have lived their lives and died, never going to see a book like that you have in your lap, never going to hear the things that we talk about tonight.
Right.
And I can remember being little, and at one point someone tried to explain it away, or I guess cushion the blow of eternal damnation with purgatory. And then a little later in my life, the Pope decided there was no more such thing as purgatory.
So they got rid of purgatory.
They got rid of it.
So what
I
happened
didn't
to
know
all
you
the
could
people?
do that.
What happened to all the people who were there?
I don't know. I don't know if they leveled up. I don't know if they went down, if they got to draw straws. It was the whole thing is just we laugh about it, but it's crazy.
I too grew up in a Catholic church, so
Okay, so
I'm
you know-
familiar with all of that, and you're right. It's funny how those perceptions are there. They're certainly not in the Bible, but they're taught, and people. I like the truth a lot better.
Yes, it's a much better story.
It's a much better story. It's a much better ending. So I'm good with sticking with the Bible here.
Well, let's talk more about that story then.
But the scene that we just read about here is basically something called the Great White Throne Judgment, and that's kind of a biblical term, but it's also reflected in the next scripture that I want to turn to, which is Revelation 20 and verse 11. Take a look at this one. Revelation 20, verse 11. All right. It says, speaking of the great white throne, then I saw a great white throne, and him who was seated on it. Earth and sky fled from his presence, and there was no place for them. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and books were opened. Another book was opened, which is the book of life. The dead were judged according to what they had done, as recorded in the books. The sea gave up the dead that were in it, and death and Hades gave up the dead that were in them. And each person was judged according to what he had done. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. The lake of fire is the second death. If anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. So here's this great white throne, and again, everyone's going to be there at some point or another. And we're all going to be there before God and give an accounting of our lives to Him. And there will be some period of judgment that's really undefined here, but certainly I can't think of anything more frightening than a potential second death. So that's an interesting twist to the whole thing that people don't. But the thing I really wanted to drive to tonight was, though, here's this resurrection of all these people.
And you're talking about resurrections, actually.
Well, tonight I do want to talk about another one, because really, what is the disciple of Jesus? How does he or her fit into this scenario?
Will somebody who's a disciple of Christ be at this resurrection?
Exactly. In fact, is the resurrection of the dead our only hope, going back to the teachings that you and I were taught in Catholic school? Is that our hope as Christians? Is that really what we're after, is just to be resurrected? We just heard everyone is going to be resurrected. So is there something more then for the disciples of Jesus? What's up with that? And there is more. There's a lot more. And God's plan of salvation, as laid out in the Holy Days, gives us a whole different perspective on what is in store for the disciples of Christ. So, agreed?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, great. There's a subtle reference in the 11th chapter of Hebrews I want to turn to. And it talks about a different scenario for the disciples of Christ. Look at this one, Hebrews 11. This one we will recognize as the faith chapter. It's got a lot of famous people listed in this particular chapter, great saints down through time. Hebrews 11, beginning in verse 32. And it says, "And what more shall I say? I don't even have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and the prophets." All of these people that had lived, great people, who through faith conquered kingdoms and administered justice and gained what was promised, who shut the mouth of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received their dead raised back to life again. Others were tortured and refused to be released, so that they might gain a better resurrection. A better resurrection. What's that all about? We hear about this all the time in the churches, but it is a different resurrection. It is something that is specially set aside for the disciples of Christ. And that's really what we're after, is that. I mean, generally speaking, I think as we would all agree, that if we're given choices of a couple of different things, we're going to choose the better one, right? Everybody wants the better one. Well, I want the better one too. And
At least most people's going to choose.
Right. Who's not going to choose the better one, right? Plus, I'm not real sure I like anything to do with the second death that we read about either. But, you know, everyone is going to be resurrected at some point or another. But we seek something different as the disciples of Christ. We do seek a better resurrection, a resurrection that the saints that were are laid out here in the 11th chapter of Hebrews, that they will participate in as well. And that's what we're striving for, is that one right there. But what makes it better? What is it why is it better?
Because resurrection sounds pretty good.
Yep, resurrection sounds good.
Eternal life.
I'm breathing
It's
again.
like you sold me at resurrection.
Yeah.
All right, resurrection, hey.
You had me there.
You had
And
me
for
there.
the most part, isn't that what we've always been taught in most Christian churches? You know, just to breathe again was going to be good enough.
Again, going back to, we were told it was either up or down.
Right.
There was no various levels of up.
Right. Right. Well, there's a lot more to the better resurrection that we need to take a look at, and I'm going to turn it back over to Revelation 20 again. Revelation 20. Let's check this one out. Revelation 20 and beginning in verse 4. I saw thrones on which were seated those who had been given authority to judge. And I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded because of their testimony for Jesus and because of the word of God. Same category of folks that we just read about over in Hebrews. They had not worshipped the beast or his image, or had not received his mark on their foreheads or their hands. They came to life, resurrection, and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. The rest of the dead, those that we're not talking about, did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy are those who have part in the first resurrection. The second death, the thing that we were fearing so much, the second death has no power over them. But they will be priests of God and of Christ, and will reign with him for 1,000 years. The better resurrection is the first resurrection. That's what we want to be a part of. And the second death has no power on these people. There's also another piece of this reward, right? The reigning with Jesus Christ on this earth for 1,000 years, while the remainder of mankind kind of plays out the fleshly scenario. That's what we're after, is to be a part of that resurrection and enjoy something above and beyond just breathing again, and having eternal life, a spirit life that will be with Jesus Christ forever and ever. As spirit beings, we aren't subject to a second death anymore, and those are the kind of things that I think we're really after. So it's not just enough to be resurrected. It's really, we want to be resurrected in a better resurrection and
To actually be transformed.
transformed into that. We're trying to get to that spirit level. That's really what we want to be seeking after. And that's the ultimate prize, not just to be resurrected.
And as a mother of an 8-year-old, I talked to him about that time, and I put it in the context of being a superhero for him. Because again, he's at that age where that's like the ultimate. That would be,
I think that's a great analogy.
I mean that we're going to have superpowers, and that it's going to be our job to help people, and you know, it fits all these things. He's like, "Can I come up with my own nickname?" I'm like, "Sure."
You know, and and it shouldn't be lost on us, the words kings and priests. Those are, kings and priests are educators and rulers, again, but they help people.
Yeah, it's that power. With great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
Again, putting it all back in that in a frame that a child understands is a big thing for me. I don't know if I've said it before on this show. I say it often because it was a quote from Einstein that you don't understand something until you can explain it to a 6-year-old. Until you can boil it down and explain it to a 6-year-old, you yourself don't understand it.
I like that.
And there's so much about the resurrections that allows me to talk to him about things. One of my favorites, you and I were talking about, you know, your grandson and that he has members of his family that aren't in the church. And my son's dad and his stepmom are not in any church. And it gives me, I like to say, an opportunity to talk to him about things. And one of the things that, you know, we talked about the resurrection, we call it our forever life. That this is our practice life, and then we have our forever life. And he told me, and he asked, well, why don't, you know, his dad and his stepmom believe? And I told him, I said, Connor, have you ever gotten your hopes really far up about something really good, and then it didn't happen? He said, yeah. And I said, how does that feel? And he's like, it's horrible. And I said, yeah, I think that's just where your dad and your stepmom are at. They just don't want to get their hopes up. But because we're going to be in this first resurrection, we're going to get to be there. We're going to get to be there and be the ones to say surprise and have this wonderful time that we get to tell them that they can get their hopes up now because it's here.
I love that analogy. The forever life. I'm going to have to remember that.
Oh, we use that all the time. That this is the practice life.
Yeah, there's
and
the practice life and the forever life.
It gives context to every other life lesson
I like it.
there is.
I like it. That's
so
a
no,
good
maybe
word.
I should probably talk about that more. And
Yes,
another.
it's a training scenario where we're training
Yes.
for that. Or it's like sometimes I look at it for people who play video games. It's the practice level,
Right.
where you get to learn how
I
everything
talk about
works.
it with board games. That, you know, when you're teaching, whenever you're introducing a game to a child, you do a practice. You know, let's do a practice run, and you explain the rules because you don't know them because you haven't played it before. If you mess up, it didn't count. It's okay. We can do it over again. And only once you know the rules, know what's expected of you,
And the end game.
And yep, you've gone through the practice. Now let's start the game for real.
Yeah.
And that's how we talk about this. This is just, when anything bad happens, this is just the practice. It's okay. You can start over again. You can try again. You're learning all the rules. And
Well, I think that's an important part. And I didn't get into it with this study, but another piece to this, I hate to get off topic too much, but I wanted to say that, you know, with resurrection comes judgment. Those two go hand in hand, right? So if the disciples of Christ are going to be resurrected into spirit beings, well, when's their judgment?
It's now, right?
now.
Yeah, it's our judgment.
You know, Peter tells us it's now.
Yeah.
We're going through that judgment now, and we need to be not doing the things that we shouldn't be doing and focused on the things that we should.
yeah.
I have a comment from Amy Hohertz on, I guess it's Facebook.
Hey, Amy.
And she says, does the resurrection make us transformers?
Ooh, I like that.
So that's an
Again,
idea.
whatever your kids
Transform
or
to the forever life.
yes, but yeah, spirit beings in disguise.
Spirit beings.
But again, yeah, getting to put any of this in a context that gets a kid excited about stuff, which is again the same thing that why Connor next week is going to be relating a Bible story to Minecraft. It's just all about relating it to make it more real to anybody. It's the same reason, one of the reasons we go to church. It just makes all of this more real.
Yeah.
And the thing about the resurrections, and I guess a lot of people who are watching are probably in the Church of God, and they know about the resurrections and have studied. There's a lot of people out there who like I never heard of the resurrections when I was part of Assembly of God church. We taught heaven, hell. Like the first time I heard of resurrection was from a Church of God preacher on television was talking about resurrection. I was like, what? And
let alone more than one.
Yeah, and then he's like, there's a whole chapter about it.
But then you look back, and like I can remember different songs that we sang in the Catholic Church, and it would talk about Christ coming back, and I'm like, but if we're all going up or down when we die, why is he coming back? What's he got to come back for?
Yeah. That was always a mystery.
It was. Did he leave his phone? Why is he coming back? So it's just interesting when you look back how so many other, none of the other theories, they don't make sense.
No, and like I said, I like the truth. It just feels better. The end is better. There's an opportunity for everyone, and I do think God will be so merciful to, as he's done for me, he'll be merciful to everyone.
Yeah, and as we're teaching unbelievers, and that's part of our duty is in the church and people out there watching, this right here about the resurrections is like, most of the world does not know about it. When atheists who don't believe in the Bible, because they don't believe in the Bible because they think God's awful because he sends people to hell, and majority of people, if you look at the statistic, the majority of people by that scenario would be burning in hell. And so I can see how someone can be an atheist going, I don't want to worship a God who's going to send most of the people to hell. That makes no sense to them. And it doesn't make any sense because the Bible doesn't teach it. No. But if you teach the truth about what God's plan is, and that God wants everyone to come to a knowledge of him, and has an opportunity to learn about his ways, and that no longer they'll see, we'll be superheroes, but they have the opportunity to be changed and transformed after that.
Knowing that everyone's going to get a chance and going to go through this also helps as you're talking to people, because you get to talk to people from a place of love and a place of encouragement, not a place of, I have to convince you in the time that I have with you, or you're going to be eternally damned.
Right.
And this is going to,
And as you know from all of our experiences, it sounds like there was always the question of the newborn baby that didn't live very long, and
the kids in Ethiopia.
That made no sense.
Yeah.
So this makes so much more sense.
And there's an island in the Indian Ocean that people live on that nobody has ever got the gospel to this island, because they won't allow anybody who gets close to the island, they attack them. And it's it's a very primitive tribe that lives there, and they've lived there for maybe 1,000 years. And so what about that whole island? Just because nobody can get there and share the Bible with them, they're condemned?
My God is more loving than that.
Yeah. So again,
he's also a little better with logistics than that.
Yeah. So God's logistics are fine. These people, it's part of the plan. And everything that we learn in this life, and also everything they learn on that island, everything that learn in the world, God will use that in the future, in the judgment, to bring people to where he's going to bring them to be, because he wants them to be, they're all God's children, and he wants them to be in his kingdom. And that's, and there's people's going to turn it down, of course.
Sure.
The second death. But I think, it looks like
they will turn down the truth.
The truth, not turn down a lie.
Right.
Right.
And that's the good thing. All right, so I think we're going to take another break.
Great.
And when we get back, I just have a little something I wanted to talk about that's kind of related to some things that's going on in the news. And so we'll take a short break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Sounds good.
All right, we are back, and we're bringing on the Sabbath. We're excited about the Sabbath, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about the Sabbath tonight on Bring on the Sabbath. And I wanted to put it in the context of some of the things that's been going on this past week.
Some current events.
Some current events, because you may have noticed the world's there's some crazy things going on.
Some things happening
Some
this
things
week.
happening. I think the stock market
A lot going on.
is down quite a bit. And the world economy is, there's all kind of problems as far as predictions of collapse, predictions of recession or depression, or things that may happen in the economy because of this coronavirus that is spreading. I guess it started in Wuhan and now spreading in multiple countries around the world.
Yep. It's in every continent other than Antarctica.
Antarctica, and hopefully the people in Antarctica are saying, stay away, stay away. We're here on the South Pole. And
Too cold.
But here in the United States, I actually, before we came on, the news was that they found a second person in Northern California who had got the virus just naturally. I guess what do they call it?
They call it community spread.
Community spread of this virus,
which means they cannot pinpoint where they got it.
Which means that and a way a virus spreads is like one person has a virus and you cough and somebody else gets it. It spreads kind of just like a virus. It just and it goes from here to here, and you don't know where it is. And eventually, that's why we have 20 million people who get the flu around the country. And they don't track every one of the flus. It's really difficult. They do know how many cases in general, and know people who show up and are in the hospital and that kind of stuff with the flu. And so think about this, and this is causing at least for, because I guess a lot of people, the stock market's declining. There's a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety from this coronavirus. And I did a sermon, I guess, last week in the church in Tennessee about anxiety, and I actually have a sermon about it on our website on the app that you can download. It's how it's overcoming anxiety, which is you can give you some steps of how to overcome anxiety, 4 different steps. And one of the steps of overcoming anxiety and thinking about the Sabbath day and how we in the church, we need to be, we can't let this news bring us down. We can't let this news depress us. We can't be frightened because we have the hope that we talked about a while ago. We have a hope of the resurrection. We have the hope of what Christ is doing. We know the truth. The world doesn't know it, but so we know the truth, and so we can't let anxiety get to us. And so one of the ways that we can face anxiety or face problems is rest. Is getting rest. And the Sabbath day is such a wonderful day. Yep. To get rest, and God gives us that rest. What I want to look at is Psalm 127. This is 3 verses in Psalm 127 I wanted to look at. It talks about rest and what God can do for us. So Psalm 127 verse 1, it says, "Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it." So that's something to think about, because a lot of people they work really hard. There are people who are like executives, and a lot of executives and a lot of these big corporations, they'll get up at 5 a.m. in the morning. No, I'm sorry, 3 a.m. in the morning, so they can be at their job at 5 a.m. So they can work until 11 p.m. and they do that 6, sometimes 7 days a week. And now when they do that, they're very successful. They make a lot of money. They're running big corporations. But unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. So again, you can do all that stuff, but what is it? Is it profitable, or is it in vain? And it says,
"What are you putting in your storehouse?"
Yeah, what are you putting in your storehouse? It says, "The Lord, unless the Lord guards the city." Back to the verse here, the watchman stays awake in vain. So the Lord, it says, "It is vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late." And so I think of the people who rise up early and sit up late.
I'm going to remember this verse when my alarm clock goes off on Monday.
When our alarm clock, our alarm clock goes off at 7 a.m., which for a lot of people that's sometimes 6:45 a.m. Some people that's late. Some people are getting up at 5 a.m. But for me 6:45 is pretty early. But it says to eat the bread of sorrows, and the bread of sorrows is anxiety, right?
Worry,
stress, those kind of things. And again, I think I see a lot of it in our society right now, especially people wearing masks. And I saw somebody at the grocery store when I went there yesterday was walking around with a mask, and so people are getting anxiety about this virus because it's unlike anything we've ever seen in our lifetimes. So then we weren't around in 1918 for the flu pandemic. We have not seen a pandemic on this scale in our lifetimes, and so some people may be frightened about this, and may think, oh, this may be the end, right? This could be like one of those things that's going to wipe out a quarter of the population. So there's those kind of things get in people's mind, and people overthink things. But God gives us rest, and rest is one of the ways that we can not be anxious in the world. We have the Sabbath day, this day to now fellowship. You're fellowshipping online with us and with each other. You're fellowshipping, and you can go to church, and that's a way to really refresh and to not worry. And we have to have that time to sleep and to rest. Verse 3 of this verse, it says, "Behold, children are heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb is a reward." And it was good to have Connor here, that we have as a now regular segment, because spending time with your children, spending time with your family, and this is what the Sabbath, it gives us plenty of time to do that. And this is a reward. This is a reward. This is a way to remove stress from your lives. If you're out there and you're worrying about stuff, whatever it is, spend time with your family. Look at what God has given you.
I couldn't help but to think, too, as you described, hardworking people, and there's nothing wrong with hard work.
No.
But when we speak of work-life balance, I can't think of more critical element to work-life balance than the Sabbath. Mm-hmm. The Sabbath provides the capability to disengage and engage with our families, with our church families, and most importantly with God, to reset everything and get that work-life balance back to where it should be.
Yeah, and God's telling us to spend that restful time with family.
And remember your priorities.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because again, like you said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with working hard. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of verses in the Bible that speak to that. Mm-hmm. But again, it's what are you working for? Mm-hmm. If you're working hard just to have
climb the ladder,
any kind of earthly success, which it's so easy to get caught up in.
Sure.
And if you don't have a break from it, that is what's in the forefront of your mind. That's what you're doing. It becomes your priority. Mm-hmm. But by giving yourself that time to step out of just that cycle, you realize, there's so much more that is so important. I mean, how many movies have you seen that have to make that point over and over and over again of the person that works so hard, thinks they're successful, thinks they're happy, and then, every Hallmark movie that's on around Christmas time, they go back to the small town and have some actual human interaction and realize, well, this is good too. Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Yeah. And the verse says at the very beginning of that psalm, he says, unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain.
Don't build the house.
Yeah, you build the house, but you got to build it with the Lord. And the Lord says you have to rest.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And not only does he talk about as a Sabbath day, he also talks about sleep. So it's another thing that, like, a lot of times we neglect in our lives is sleep. There's so many people who will work hard and they'll only maybe sleep 4 hours, 5 hours. And this is a bad cycle to get into.
It's going to catch up with you.
You can't catch up with it. Sleep, the Sabbath is every week, but sleep is every day. And this is something that the Bible teaches strongly about sleeping because it's very important. God built us that way. So there's some things that I found in the last couple of weeks, and even one I just found out today about how important sleep is to our health and to our ability to cope with things. They did a study. They did several studies about sleep. One study was they took 23-year-olds, and so 25, 23-year-olds.
At 23, you feel like you're pretty invincible.
Yeah, pretty invincible. So they
had
energy. They split it up between, like, I think it was maybe 14 or 11, but one half of those they had them not sleep for like maybe 3 or 4 hours a night for like a week. So they had this group do that, and the other group they had them sleep 8 hours or more every night. And then they let the people who slept for 3 or 4 hours at the end of this week catch up a couple of days. Get catch up sleep. But sometimes we do that if we've all not slept, especially when you're younger like that. But then they were able to test their immune systems, and so they gave them the flu vaccine to these young people, and they can tell like how your body's creating antibodies to this vaccine.
The immune response.
The immune response, and so the immune response was like twice or 3 times as higher in those who had slept consistently. This was like what they said. This is only in Fit 25, and so they did another study where it was like about 200 people, and so these were all ages, like our ages and older or less, but all ages, and they had about 160 or so people, and they had them not sleep and they had them sleep, and the people who slept were almost sometimes 4 or 5 times better immune response than those who did not sleep. So this is the thing to know about.
Again, consistently.
Consistently.
So, which is, I think, a main point, because a lot of people feel like, well, I can
Make it up.
Yeah, I can make it up. That's what the Sabbath is for.
Right.
That I can go
Just sleep for 8
Yeah,
hours.
yeah. That I'll go on 4 hours, and then on the Sabbath, okay, that's when I'm supposed to rest. That's not what we mean by rest. We don't mean get caught up on your
Not going to work.
basic sleep.
Yeah, the Sabbath is important for family and the time you have that, and that's an important part. I think the Sabbath. Y'all know what group of church or denomination church has the people live the longest? Have you ever heard the study?
No, I haven't heard that study.
Yeah, they studied different denominations, probably like Catholic or Baptist, and different people to see what denomination lives the longest. And the denomination that lived the longest, and they didn't do Church of God because we're kind of smaller, was the Seventh-day Adventist.
Yeah.
The Seventh-day Adventists have the longest lifespans.
Interesting.
And I'm thinking, what is that? What do they have? Well, they do teach a lot of healthy living in Seventh-day Adventists, and they rest and they keep the Sabbath day. So keeping the Sabbath day is important to a long life, to health, and also with sleep and rest. And so another study that just came out like this past week was from Medical News Daily. Medical News Daily. I'm going to read from Medical News Daily, which is online. It says recent research also suggests that poor sleep increases pain sensitivity, so you'll feel more pain if you haven't slept, and may raise the likelihood of developing cardiovascular problems. So you have heart disease by not sleeping. And also, the study recently conducted by a team from the university in Germany found that there's a mechanism linking sleep to the functioning of the immune system. And the researchers who led the study found that a good night's sleep can boost the effectiveness of certain specialized immune cells called T cells. So this is the thing to understand, that there's a pandemic, there's a virus out there that can affect people's lives. Now, people who don't sleep, people who don't take care of themselves are hurt more
susceptible
to this.
Right, because what I keep hearing is that about 80% of people who do contract the virus, or so far, have pretty, benign or not very serious symptom. It's 20% that get something very serious, that it's, the flu, it causes, hospitalization, all of that.
Yeah.
So
and that's probably something not, that's pretty bad, because 1 out of 5 people going to the hospital is a lot of people going to the hospital with something.
Right.
But
how do we get you into the other 4?
Yeah.
Worst case scenario if this comes to your town.
Yeah, and the thing is about stress is the worst way you can live a short life.
Absolutely.
Because stress will just hurt you in all kinds of ways. And so what God gives His people in the Sabbath day is a way to relieve stress and find peace.
Stress. Absolutely.
And so enjoy the Sabbath day, sleep, rest, praise God for what you have, enjoy your family. These are things that lead to good health, and when something like that comes, you will be in better standing from doing what God says in His Word, to rest, to get sleep, and to
you
get
mean
those
God's
things.
Word is actually still applicable in everyday life?
Yes, and again, it's already there. Of like how do you know? And there's ways about, we're doing quarantines, and the Bible talks about how to quarantine people. And so God was telling people before they even knew what a germ was, that you need to go outside the camp if you have the disease, right? Yeah. So again, for society that doesn't understand how germs work, it makes no sense how they could just figure it out on their own. God had to tell them, this is how it works. If you quarantine people, diseases won't spread.
Right.
This is a way to do those type of things.
Right.
So again, there's things we can do, but for us in the church, we need to look at what's going on in the world as an opportunity. Now we can share with people more of God's truth, more of the resurrection, more of what He can do for us. Because again, people are going to be scared. People are going to panic. They're already doing that all over the world.
And if they see you not panicking, they'll ask why. It becomes a whole nother opportunity to talk to people.
Yeah.
So they say, you don't seem to be stressed out about this. You don't seem to be anxious.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah, and again, anxiety can
And
lead
it's not
to,
because we're in a bunker 400 feet below Atlanta.
yeah, right. And anxiety can lead to not sleeping, right? Lead to
Yes,
Right.
it's a vicious cycle.
It's a cycle. So the thing is, and there's other things we can do, and God's Word is full of it. Things you can do to not be anxious, studying God's Word, having faith, replacing the thoughts in your mind with God's ways and not negative things. So many things that we can do that God gives us. So again, I don't have time to talk about it all day. I actually have a sermon that's in our app online. It's called Overcoming Anxiety. I definitely recommend that if you have problems with anxiety. And I just know that we're all in this together. So continue to pray for everyone out there through this time that may become difficult for us. Maybe not. Hopefully it won't be. Hopefully we'll just say, well, what was that?
Someone's chimed in with a great verse.
Okay, great.
It's John 16:33. It says, "These things I have spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. In the world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world."
Amen.
Yeah. So even if we have tribulation, we have problems.
It's going to come
Amen.
from all angles, but it's going to be okay.
But Christ has overcome the world. We have a resurrection. We have a future. We have great things to look forward to. So again, we thank everybody. I think we're getting close to our time to end. We try to keep this at an hour. So
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah.
Jim, for being here.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
So hopefully you'll be back in a future episode. And next week we have Kelly McDonald,
Yeah.
who's scheduled to join us. So we're looking forward to Kelly McDonald, who's been a visitor before here, to be here next week. So you can join us next week. So we're going to take our last break, and when we get back, we'll say our final goodbyes.
Hi, we'd like to offer you 2 booklets on today's program. We want to offer you, Is Jesus Really God? There's a lot of controversy about who and what Jesus was. We also want to offer you, What is God? Of all the theological questions that evoke controversy in the ancient church, the question of who and what God was one of the major questions. It's even a major question today. You can order by visiting our website, www.cgi.org. That's www.cgi.org.
We're back.
Well, thank you again for joining us this evening. I hope that we're a good part of starting off your Sabbath of rest.
Enjoy the Sabbath.
Yeah, have a good night, and may God bless your Sabbath. Thanks for joining us.
Amen.
See you next week for Connor's Corner.
Yep,
Good night.
we'll be here.